Miles Warren was once a genius in biology and a professor at Empire State University. He fell in love with a student named Gwen Stacy and became obsessed with her. After the girl's tragic death, the professor blamed Spider-Man for the loss of his love and became obsessed with the superhero. Dr. Warren adopted the identity of the Jackal and would fight Peter using his extensive knowledge of biology to create clones. The villain's first creation was an unstable clone named Kane, who the Jackal considered a failure. Ben Reilly was a much more successful experiment, as he was a virtually identical clone with all of Peter Parker's memories. Peter was captured by the Jackal and forced to fight Ben Reilly, with both Peter and Ben thinking they were the original Spider-Man. They realize what is going on and team up to save a clone of Gwen Stacy. Ben appears to have been killed in an explosion, and Peter, worried that a dead clone of himself would raise an awful lot of questions, hides the duplicate's body in a chimney. However, Ben survives the experience and manages to escape. He finds Peter with Mary Jane, and having inherited Peter's strong sense of honor and morality, accepts his role as the clone and chooses to leave town. Still thinking of himself as only Peter Parker, he adopts the new name Ben Reilly, based on his uncle's first name, Ben Parker, and aunt's maiden name, May Reilly. With his only possessions, some old clothes Peter was going to donate to charity, Ben leaves New York City, severely depressed. On the road, Ben meets a secret agent of Norman Osborn named Seward Chainer, a scientist who helps Ben re-establish his life. During this time, Ben Reilly was hunted by the Jackal's failed clone, Kane, who was intent on seeing his fellow clones suffer. Reilly is severely depressed during this period, engaging in a broken relationship with an abuse victim, and avoiding heroic behavior as it reminds him of Peter Parker. Ben is ultimately unable to suppress his spider sense, and vows to no longer give in to despair and try to make a difference in the world as best he can. 5 years later, Ben gets news of Aunt May having a stroke, and returns to find an angry and despondent Peter Parker. Though the two initially fight, they eventually start working together. Ben dons a makeshift costume with improved web shooters, and the media dubs the new hero as the Scarlet Spider. Ben would briefly join the New Warriors, but experienced a lot of friction with the team for refusing to reveal his secret identity, which Ben kept private out of respect for Peter Parker. When Peter is arrested after being framed for murder by Kane, Ben agrees to take his place so the original Spider-Man can get to the bottom of this. Over time, they discover the Jackal is actively making more clones, including the sinister Spider-Side, who can manipulate his own body freely. These clones are amoral and dangerous, so Peter and Ben are forced to stop them and the Jackal. Reilly would continue operating as the Scarlet Spider until two villains created a holographic version of the hero, which ruined the identity after it went on a rampage. This forces Ben to resign from the New Warriors and retire the Scarlet Spider. Peter and Ben would be shocked and initially devastated by a false revelation planted by Norman Osborn. Then this led the heroes into thinking Peter was the clone, and Ben Reilly was the original Spider-Man. As a result of this discovery, Peter retires as Spider-Man to raise a child with the recently impregnated Mary Jane, while Ben accepts the mantle of Spider-Man, donning his own version of the original costume. Reilly takes up a job working at a diner, and with only a handful of exceptions, few realize that a clone has taken Spider-Man's place. Ben would come into conflict with villains including Carnage, the Hobgoblin, and Kane. The clone's influence would eventually cause Kane to turn himself in for his actions. The new Spider-Man even fought Superboy in a crossover with the DC Universe, a battle which Reilly actually managed to win through the use of his spider sense and impact webbing. The clone would have a couple of brief relationships, though neither lasted very long, and would team up with Peter once again during the Onslaught crisis. However, his time as Spider-Man would not last forever. Ben was attacked by Norman Osborn, who reveals that Reilly was indeed a clone and his entire life has been orchestrated by the Green Goblin just to mess with Peter Parker. The villain beats Reilly unconscious and arranges for Peter and all of their friends to be in a building when it is demolished. While Peter battles Norman, Ben is able to evacuate everybody, but is badly injured after protecting Flash Thompson from an explosion. The two Spider-Men would go on to work together to try and defuse the various bombs planted by the Green Goblin, but Ben Reilly's spine is critically damaged when he protects Peter from an incoming Goblin glider. As a result, Ben falls several stories and lands on a taxicab. Mortally wounded, Ben asks Peter to retake his role as Spider-Man. Ben dies, and his body rapidly dissolves, confirming his identity as the copy. With the recent stillbirth of his child, Peter accepts and becomes Spider-Man once more. However, Ben Reilly's legacy would live on. Peter would use his name as a pseudonym when needed, while other heroes, including the fellow clone Kane, would take up the mantle of the Scarlet Spider. In the alternate world of MC2, Peter's daughter Mayday would use Ben's Spider-Man costume, and Ben was revealed to have a son who becomes the hero Dark Double. Alternate versions of Ben Reilly have also appeared in Marvel Zombies, several What If comics, a retelling of the Clone Saga, the Amalgam Universe, and in the Spider-Verse event. The Spider-Verse Ben Reilly would team up with the mainstream version of Kane and Ultimate Spider-Woman. This Reilly was tragically also killed, ironically in the process of destroying an enemy cloning facility. Various versions of Ben Reilly have also appeared in several television series and video games. An ultimate version of Ben Reilly also exists, but he was not a clone of Peter Parker. Rather, he is a scientist who plays an important role in the creation of the other Spider-Man clones, including Ultimate Spider-Woman, who plays a more similar role to that of the original Ben Reilly in the Ultimate version of the Clone Saga. As Spider-Man's clone, Ben possesses the exact same superpowers as Spider-Man. Therefore, he has the same enhanced level of strength, agility, durability, equilibrium, reflexes, and speed as Peter Parker. Reilly can also cling to walls and surfaces, and possesses a spider sense to warn him of danger. Like all clones of Peter Parker, Ben is immune to detection by their spider sense, and all clones and Peter cannot be detected by Reilly's own spider sense. However, having never had Venom as a host, the symbiote can be reliably detected by Ben's senses. Ben's fighting style is less polished than Peter's due to 5 years of inactivity, though during this time the clone was able to improve the web shooters. These new shooters have additional features, like impact webbing, which fires pellets of web fluid that can explode on impact, trapping its intended target. They can also shoot paralytic darts and tiny tracers that are smaller and lighter than Peter's original tracker design. As a clone with his original's memories and experiences, Ben retains Peter's brilliant mind and knowledge of science. Reilly also briefly obtained the powers of the symbiote Carnage when he served as its host, but this was temporary and the clone did not make much use of the alien's abilities. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden and this is my origin and bio of Ben Reilly. See, I don't have much to add to this video that I didn't already say for my origins and bio for Kane, but having just covered two of the biggest characters within the Clone Saga, I can safely say that this story was just awful. It's very badly written and dragged out for way too long without an obvious plan, and it's just so much wrong with this story. You can tell at every point in Ben's life that there's an editorial mandate behind it. First he's introduced as a clone, and that's simple enough. But then the story drags on, and pretty soon it's overly complicated, and playing up Ben Reilly as the original Spider-Man while forcing Peter to retire from the role. For a while, Ben was supposed to be the new Spider-Man, and Marvel wanted to stick with this choice, were it not for massive fan backlash and their company basically collapsing financially. At which point, Marvel gave Ben the most heroic death they could muster, while awkwardly reintroducing Peter with a convenient and all too blunt stillbirth of their unborn child. The whole thing is a disaster best left alone. Somewhere in all of this is actually a decent idea, and there is some potential in the idea of Ben Reilly as a character even replacing Spider-Man, but the execution was handled so poorly with the Clone Saga that if you're a fan of Spider-Man at all and would like to remain that way, I recommend you stay the hell away from this story. There isn't a lot I would recommend that features Ben Reilly because of this. Out of everything I've read, only 2 things really stick out as being potentially worth your time. The first is the Ultimate Clone Saga, which, while not the best Ultimate Spider-Man story, nor does it feature Ben Reilly as a character all that much, was pretty fun and something I at least enjoyed reading. I also like the Scarlet Spider story that takes place as part of the Spider-Verse event, though I feel you aren't missing much if you skip that one too, so it's entirely up to you, as there's some cool aspects of Scarlet Spiders, but it was nothing that special to me. Joey did a review of all the Scarlet Spider issues, so you can take a look and decide for yourself on our channel. Let me know what you think of Ben Reilly in the comments section. Also, feel free to give me any requests for an Origins bio you'd like to see in the future, but keep in mind we always have a lot of these being requested, so the list of characters is getting rather long. If you'd like to know more about the Spider-Verse event, Joey's been reviewing every single issue of this hit series. You can find a complete reading order with all of his reviews on our website. The link is in the video description. We also have a Facebook page, so you can stay up to date on our channel. You can support the comics industry through the Amazon links provided below. And finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.